welcome to Be the Change podcast. I'm Ashley.
I'm Melissa.
And today we are actually starting a new book. So I know we've been kind of talking through a series, and we just finished on our last episode, I guess episode 8, The Journey of Forgiveness.
Yes.
And we were going through a book with that, and then now we're going to be diving more into our headspace, our mindset, things like that. And so we are actually starting with a new book called Get Out of Your Head by, is it Jennie Allen?
Jennie.
Jennie Allen. Allen. Ooh,
Allen.
Goodness. Good morning. I need to wake my brain up. So if you want to follow along with us.
I kept my cover on. She likes to take hers off.
I'm the weirdo.
So that's what it kind of looks like. But underneath the cover, it's pretty too. So
yes. I like the color. So if you'd like to get the actual book and follow along with us, we're actually going to be camping out here for a while because there's so much to talk about when it comes to like our brains, our minds, how we're thinking. Yeah. So we both decided that this is where we need to spend our next few weeks and few episodes.
Because I think it's going to be easier to process the whole forgiving and, all the things if you have a hold of your mind and your thoughts.
Yeah, and so starting with that, so we're just starting with chapter 1 in here. So this is episode number 9. We're just trucking along.
I know.
So today we're going to talk about thinking, which is chapter 1 of this book.
Yeah.
And something you had just said made me think of like pretty much what our theme verse is going to be throughout this whole series, and that's the holding your thoughts captive.
Yes.
So in 2 Corinthians 10:5, it says, and every proud thing that is raised up against the knowledge of God. Ooh, I apparently need glasses. I'm getting old. And we take every thought captive to obey Christ.
That's right.
So that's really going to be, we're probably going to refer back to that a lot, is taking every thought captive. We see it in the Bible. We know it to be true. So that's going to be a lot of what we're referring back to.
And every thought, like all of them.
Every single thought.
Doesn't matter what it is. You gotta, is it what I should be thinking?
Yes.
Does it align with what he says? But then you have people who don't know what he says. So is it in line with what? Like how would you correlate that for somebody who, because I struggle with that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it is a lot. And that's what I really want to spend a lot of time on, is how do we figure that out?
Yeah.
How do we know right thoughts from wrong thoughts?
Yeah.
How are we making sure it is biblically aligned versus what we're just feeling or thinking?
Yeah.
So I love that.
That just came to me. I don't know where that question came from somewhere for a reason. Yeah. I wonder.
For sure.
Anyway,
well, I have this part highlighted in the book, so I kind of wanted to start with this, and then we can just see kind of where the conversation goes. So she had a story about a bird. I don't know if you remember this part of the chapter, and I'm just going to read it. It's just a little paragraph, and I keep looking at one camera, and I have another camera, so I probably look crazy off here staring. Anyways, once a bird flew into our tiny house and wouldn't fly out. It took more than an hour for our whole family working together to catch that silly little sparrow. Shooting the bird with a BB gun, easy. But capturing the wild sparrow flailing through our house was an altogether different task, a nearly impossible one. So how much more impossible to capture a wild thought on the fly?
Yeah.
Yet the book I build my life on is telling me to capture all my thoughts, every one of them. So I kind of wanted to start with that because I do feel like thoughts can get that way, and they can be like a wild sparrow flying around in our brain.
Yes.
So
yeah. And it just takes one trigger, is what we talked about earlier. One thing can set me on a wild goose chase that lasts way longer than it needs to, for sure.
Yeah, and I guess we can mention, like, conversation you and I were having before we started recording was essentially how easy this is, and people want to overthink it and say that this is a difficult thing to do. But kind of skipping ahead a little bit, you had showed me one of the charts that she has, and maybe we can recreate this and post it on our social media. But if you have the book, it's on page 9. But she did a little chart that kind of talks about where our mind goes and how everything is kind of triggered or how it starts. And we were talking, well, her thing is she starts with an emotion. So some kind of emotion is being put in your life, which triggers a thought, which triggers a behavior, which messes with your relationships, and then there has a consequence.
Right.
And the reason I say it's so easy to hold your thoughts captive is because, like I was telling you this morning, I would really like for somebody to try this. And if you find me wrong, please tell me.
Yeah.
But you cannot physically think about 2 things at the same time.
Correct.
And like I said, with women, we often think about a lot of things in a series of moments, like, oh, I need to go home and clean the kitchen, and I need to do laundry, and what am I doing for dinner? Like, that's a lot of things you're thinking about.
Right.
But you can't physically think about 2 things at the same time.
Right.
And so this morning I had a situation where I saw something which triggered an emotion. Yeah. And I immediately in my head was like, well, of course. And then I wanted to have that negative thought. Yeah. And I literally in my car by myself was like, no.
That's right.
And I like said it out loud. Yeah. And I was like, every thought captive. Because I knew what we were talking about. I knew what we've been studying. And so then the whole way to your house, I was like, every thought captive. Because, you know, if I'm thinking of that, I can't think of anything else.
And you know what? If that's the only thing you're playing, then it's not making you feel any kind of way.
Yeah. And then it was like, even if you turn a song on and you start singing a song, if you were thinking something that you know is making you feel down or bad or something is happening, take that thought captive and literally think about something else.
Anything
that
else.
easy.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to have to deal with that emotion later.
Sure.
But for the moment, don't let yourself get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the alternative to your morning could have went drastically the other way in a way that you thought you were done with. I mean, you know, so don't let it sneak up and be a surprise, because it's going to happen every day, all day. But you've got to wrangle it back. I mean, you know, you can't just let it run amok there. The mind will deceive you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know another thing I had here is, I really hope the stuff I highlighted, it's all just going to kind of flow together. But it says, it's incredible if you think about it. How can something we can't see control so much of who we are, determine what we feel and what we do and what we say or don't, dictate how we move or sleep, and inform what we want, what we hate, and what we love?
Yeah.
Because how we think shapes our lives.
Yeah.
And I'm just
it does. 100%.
Because how many times have you heard somebody say, well, I couldn't go to sleep last night. I just had so many thoughts running through my head. And it's like, it really does. Like, our thoughts and the way we think about stuff. And I often hear women in my life talk about stressors, things that are stressing them out, things they are thinking about. And it saddens me, because I understand as a woman the feeling of that.
Yes.
And I know we've talked about this many times, and it still stands to be true. We're women. We're nurturers. We care about others in our lives. We care about just everything. And so even if we want to admit it or not, we're often going to find ourselves thinking about somebody or a situation or something going on, which is going to bring that emotion, bring those thoughts. Yeah. And then we just get into this cycle of, like, for me, because I was told by one of my counselors, I'm an overthinker and overprocessor. So it's extremely important to me and for me to hold those thoughts captives. Because if I don't, I will just sit and overthink. And what did I do? And you know, just over and over and over again. And that is just kind of a sick cycle to be in. Like, honestly.
Big time.
And I know you had some statistics. Well,
yes, I do. And it goes with what you just said. You talking to women, you know, different women or whatever, and different stressors that they have. And she actually talks about it in our book. And I verified because the book was written, I don't know, I think it was 2020, maybe it was released. I'm not quite sure. But it's a couple of years old. And I thought, well, I wonder if things have changed.
Right.
Luckily, it has not. I mean, what I found were the same statistics. 60 to 80% of primary care doctor visits are stress related. And 70% of the visits are because of psychological problems, be it stress, anxiety, or depression, all of which contribute to headaches, which I didn't know. You were telling me the other day, headaches aren't a normal thing. I thought they were normal. Mm-hmm. They're not. We're not supposed to have headaches. I didn't know. So when you have a headache, no, you're not supposed to. That's not right. High blood pressure, heart problems, diabetes, skin conditions, asthma. I didn't know asthma was I had no idea. Arthritis, depression, anxiety. We got to get a handle. Yeah. We have got to get
And we were saying the thing this morning, whenever you were telling me all this, I was like, well, if people get a handle on it and they ground themselves in the word, then what's going to happen to these medical facilities? And, people's not going to want to go to the doctor as much because they're what?
They're not going to need it.
Yeah, they're feeling good.
Right.
And essentially, like, I stand by it. When you stress and you have all these, any kind of thoughts or... The mind is so powerful.
Oh, my gosh.
And when you get trapped in your head, essentially, it does bring health problems.
Yes.
And people... I feel like, and just like you said with the headaches, it's become normal.
Yes.
You're like when somebody has an autoimmune disorder or any kind of skin disorder or diabetes.
Yeah.
How do people talk about it? Like it's normal.
Right.
It's just like, well, this is what I have.
No.
And it's like there is something going on in your body.
Right.
And I've heard, this is what I study on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I could talk about the health side of it forever
it's
and
important.
ever. But essentially, it's not normal.
No.
And I'm getting at a point, with this, and this is, part of us taking a stand with, be the change and really make a difference. And then also, this is what I spend my time on. This is what I'm passionate about is stop being normal.
What they have normalized
is not normal. Yes. And it's like what I've heard recently from somebody, and I really want to just like share information, but I also don't want to be the annoying like health person.
Right.
So
We don't want,
I recently heard somebody say, and I will, if anybody's curious, I could tell you who and tell you where.
Right.
But essentially, God doesn't make mistakes.
Correct.
And He made us all wonderfully. When you think about how our body works and everything that's going on, and like when you really think about it, it is truly incredible. And so when you have all these things that are happening to your body physically,
right,
it is not normal. It is not okay, and something is going on, and you need to get to the root problem so your body can work the way that God created your body to work.
Yep.
And a huge part of that, I truly believe, is our mind. And even in here, it's all in our heads.
It is.
Our brains are so powerful and they are constantly changing. That's what makes it so hard too, is you can't keep up with your brain.
Right.
So that's why you always have to be able to adapt, because your brain is always adapting. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes sense to me. Just because I adapt, like, I don't know, like when I was younger, and me and my mom would have to go somewhere. She'd have to take me somewhere, whatever. And it maybe wasn't necessarily a place for kids. But you would never know I was there. Like I was off in the corner. I was playing by myself. And I was quite content, So, being adaptable, putting you wherever and just kind of blending or doing or whatever with your...
Being adaptable.
Yeah, but like with your... When you know how powerful your mind is and how, like, you can bring on mental illness or any illness, not mental illness. That'll certainly get you mental illness for sure. But no, like you can think enough of an illness that you actually create it in your body, and you get that illness that you are... Yes. Like you manifest that in your brain, and you can look it up, manifestation or do you know what I'm talking about? Like people, there's so many different words.
Yeah, my mom used to always, when we were a kid, we would, like, if we would say something, and I can't think of an example, but I just remember her phrase of, you need to stop or you're going to speak that into existence.
Correct.
And like as a kid, you're just kind of like, okay, I'll stop. Like, I mean, you don't really think about it. Mm-hmm. But as an adult, I have found when you really do speak it or think it or ponder on it, or when you're spending your time, energy, and effort about something, and like you said, saying something over and over again, it is going to become you. Right. Because you are essentially making that a part of your life. Right. And so I strongly believe in speaking things into existence. And sometimes it's kind of silly because I'll listen to people who essentially are successful, and they're like, I stand in front of the mirror and I tell myself, you are great. And like, you hear people do affirmations.
Yes.
And then I'm like, why is that not normal? Because I kind of like, it's one of those things like, oh, you talk to yourself in the mirror. Right. That's silly.
Right. Like I would never, because.
Yeah. But guess what though? I deal with self-esteem. I have poor self-esteem. I don't think of myself the way that I should and how God made me. So I'm like, why am I not standing in front of the mirror and looking at God's creation and saying, you are beautiful, you are wonderful, like you are wonderfully made, you are who you are. Like, why am I not doing those things? Right. And that's part of the not normal.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well, it takes me back that, I don't know, maybe a year ago or so, I was feeling kind of down or whatever. And I don't know, I was working, and I guess I was taking pictures. I'm not sure. But anyway, I caught myself looking, and I was like, boy, what are you frowning about? And I wasn't necessarily frowning, but like you could see on my face that I was not quite, And so girl, you better remember who you are. Mm-hmm. And I like instantly changed like the picture, And I sent it to my coach at the time. I'm like, oh, you're in my head now, because like that's what she would have said to me. Yeah. Girl, you better stop it and remember who you are. Okay, because that makes a difference. Like knowing who I am and why I am and how he came and died for me, it makes my whole view different.
And I know like as moms too, like I have, my two boys, and I often find not often, I purposely throughout the day find ways to compliment them and to pour into them. And then sometimes I'll be like, well, did you know, like, you're so handsome? And then like my oldest, he'll be like, I know, you tell me all the time. And so then it's like, I really try and pour these things into them. And then, it is very sad, actually, not a little sad. It is very sad that I don't do the same for myself. Yeah. And then it's like, why am I not? If I cherish them so much because they are lives that are in this world that God had created, and I see how wonderful they are, why am I not looking at myself the same way?
That's very true. Yeah. I never thought of it like that. Wow. No, I never thought of it like that. Because, I say that to Ansley all the time. Yeah. And I know. But I mean, she's not like, you tell her, she's like, I know. Yeah. Oh, settle down there, gal. Settle down.
Okay, we still got to be humble. Let's be humble.
Yeah, we'll work on that next. But, looking back, I wish that I knew what I know now. Yeah. Because I would have said so many better things to my kids, I mean, like I didn't hear it, so I didn't think to say it. Yeah. And I certainly didn't tell myself, so, I don't know, but that's matter. Terrible. Yeah. I feel awful. Every day that we get through this, I'm like, boy, I was a horrible mother. No. Thank God my children still speak to me.
Don't think that way. We're literally sitting here talking about taking your thoughts captive, and you were going. But that's how fast
it starts, right? I mean, it's that quick.
Yeah, and mom guilt is.
Yeah, mom guilt will get you. Yeah, bad.
Well, and then so one of the verses, Romans 12:2, that I also highlighted here is, so what's good about this news is that we can change our thinking. Mm. The Bible tells us so. Do not be conformed to this world, one verse says, which is Romans 12:2, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Yep.
And then what's actually interesting too is I highlighted this quote in here. So this book was written in 2020.
Okay.
And, we both have read the book before. Yes. And then we were like, well, let's go back and reread it. Mm-hmm. And there was something that was said. I actually think I wrote it in the front of my Bible. The sermon I listened to on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Literally said, I wrote it in pen in the front of my Bible, says, beyond the offensive. You should be killing sin so sin doesn't kill me.
That's right.
So then I'm reading this book
and it says it.
John Owen, be killing sin or it will be killing you. It's time true. For us to fight.
It's true.
And I was like, what are the odds that I hear the same quote that I don't remember
from? That gives me chills.
I was like, in the same week.
Yeah.
It's
important.
Be killing sin or it will be killing you.
It's true.
And I'm like, thoughts, that is where, sin is sin, but where you can really get going are with your thoughts.
Ooh.
In so many different ways.
It's bad.
And so then I'm like, I really think, I don't know, I'm so mind blown when I read this. And I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
What are the odds?
Right.
So then that is like my thing I've been thinking about. And I know this morning I just kept going, every thought captive.
Yeah.
But I have been thinking about that a lot. Yeah. Kill sin or it will kill me. Kill sin or it will kill me.
Yeah.
And so
it's so true.
Yeah.
But it's... how we control our minds or how we don't control our minds is considered sin, depending on what it is. And that's what, when people think about sin, they're not thinking that. Yeah. That's not where they're going. They're going with the smoking and the drinking and all the bad things,
the physical,
right. Well, there's mental things, sins that you're not supposed to do as well. Worry.
Or they think if it's mental, okay, if you're lusting after someone when you're married, like that kind of stuff.
Right.
And it's like, no, your basic things can be sinful as well.
Right.
Yeah, and I that's one of the things that I'm like, ooh, that really annoys me is when people try and categorize sin.
Right. There is no category.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this too because last time I think I had said, it wasn't a horrible sin. Sin is sin.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you did. It's the same in God's eyes. Maybe
it's just really hard as humans.
Law is different.
Yeah.
But,
it's just really hard as humans because I definitely understand if I'm thinking a poor thought essentially about myself or someone else. Like I could see where I would think that's a lesser sin than if somebody's out and they're like a mass murderer.
Well, right, because nobody knows what you're thinking.
Yeah, but it's like really though when it comes to God, I mean biblically, and I could be wrong on this, but the way I understand it to be true, and this is where we're going to shaping what we think of God. But God, there is sin, and then there is not sin.
Right.
And essentially when you ask for forgiveness from sin and you repent and turn away from your sin is sin.
Yeah.
And so if I went out and stole from a store or if I'm having thoughts, if I ask God for that forgiveness, it's this like essentially to him it is the same.
Right.
My heart change is going to be the same.
Yes.
And so that's where I'm like, I feel like as humans it is so hard to not categorize sin.
Yeah. You're right.
But essentially it is the same. And so that's just part of the whole thing too of what are we normalizing?
Right.
And what are we not what are we standing up against? What are we fighting against? So
right. And I think that with the statistics that I saw, it blows me away. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And never mind what, but why are we doing it? I don't know. I don't. It really bothers me.
Yeah, there's so much to it, and I really hope that throughout these next few weeks we're able to like really break down, because they're like what we've talked about in previous episodes. It could be your life in general, just like what's going on. Is your life super busy?
Yeah. Or
it could be little things like relationships in your life. I feel like there's just so much that people don't unpack, and that's what's causing those things.
Right. Yeah.
Is there's a lot of bottling.
Yeah.
Or it's like
not getting through it, not really, Yeah. Or I get it.
People years later having these feelings because they were never resolved.
Right.
So you're holding on to stuff.
Yeah, and then you got all that. Yeah.
And so the last thing I had highlighted here says, what we believe and what we think about matters.
Yeah.
And the enemy knows it. And he is determined to get in your head to distract you from doing good and to sink you so deep that you feel helpless, overwhelmed, shut down, and incapable of rising to make a difference for the kingdom of God.
That's right. To where you freeze.
Yes.
And you do nothing.
Yes.
Hello. I'm in that club.
Yeah.
You know. So what caught my attention was in Mark chapter 5. I've got 3 verses. I have 5:27 and 28, and then I have 5:34. So it says, when she heard, and it's speaking about, where was he?
The
Let's
woman
see.
who came and touched Jesus.
Yes, she was sick. She had a blood disorder or whatever, had been bleeding for 30, 40 years. So anyway, he was walking through the
crowd of people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I know he was somewhere. Where was he? Hello.
Sorry, I only know this because we talked about
it. We did, and I'm like, no, I don't know.
Trying to help a sister out.
Please, Lord knows I need it. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately her bleeding stopped. I just went on to 29. I'm sorry. But immediately her bleeding stopped and she was freed from her suffering. And then when you go to 34, if I can find it, he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." And I can attest that's exactly how he does it. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, daughter, isn't that the only time he says that in the Bible? I feel like it is.
Yeah.
I'm probably wrong, but I'm going to verify that because I'm going to check. I might not be wrong, but it's important.
Yeah.
Because I feel like for me, after I had, because she had been to doctor after doctor, nobody could heal her. Nobody could fix her. Nobody could make her right or better or nothing. And it took one thought. If I could just grab a hold of his clothes. I don't even, that's it. I don't have to talk to him. Nothing. Just grab him, the clothes. And because she thought that,
she believed it.
She believed it,
mm-hmm.
and therefore it happens.
Yeah. Which,
there's other verses in the Bible that says that too, which I'll get to later. But because those are my favorite. But that's kind of how I felt. I had gone to this and gone to this and gone to, and some of it was doctors and some of it was not. And nothing helped me. No amount of depression, anxiety, mental craziness, medicine, nothing. But when I reached out my hand to grab his garment, and he healed me because I believed it.
We'll be talking about thoughts and our mind and, essentially getting out of your head, like this book says, for the next few weeks. We're probably going to be here for a while because you can talk about the mind all day long. So thank you all so much for watching this week's episode. We did say this was episode 9, right? Thinking about thinking.
Yeah. And
so we hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it. As always, we're very grateful if you made it this far. Is there any last thoughts or comments you'd like to say?
No, I'm just, when I think back to where I was and where I am today, and I'll tell you what, I'm so glad he didn't leave me where I was. Mm-hmm. I'm so glad he didn't leave me where I was. Life could be a whole lot different right now for me.
Same.
And I'm just grateful.
Same.
Just grateful.
I agree. All right, I love that. Well, I hope y'all have the best week. And then, as always, if you'd like to leave any comments or feedback, please drop below. Our Instagram, Facebook, and email will be in the description as well. So please feel free to reach out, and also look on social media for any posing questions we may have or any additional posts. So y'all have a great week, and we'll see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye.